The quantum cage-capped Alina Rodriguez pressed her palm against the cold metal of the observation deck aboard humanity's most advanced space station, Terra Prime. The stars looked different today, though she couldn't explain why. Something in her gut told her the universe was about to change forever. "Captain, we're picking up massive gravitational anomalies at the edge of the system," called Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the sensor station. Her voice carried an edge that made Alina's blood run cold. "Whatever's coming, it's big, really big." Alina moved to the main display, watching as the sensors painted a picture that defied belief. Space itself seemed to be bending, twisting like fabric caught in a cosmic wind. Then they appeared, ships, hundreds of them, each one the size of a small city, emerging from what could only be described as tears in reality itself. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Alina ordered, her training taking over despite the impossibility of what she was seeing. "Priority Alpha, we have visitors." The lead ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, its hull seeming to shift between states of matter like liquid metal frozen in time. As it approached, Alina could see smaller vessels surrounding it, each one clearly from a different species, different worlds. This wasn't just first contact. This was a delegation of the galaxy itself. "Incoming transmission, Captain," reported Communications Officer Davies. "They're using our own quantum channels. They know our technology. Put them through." The main screen flickered, and Alina found herself staring at a being that seemed to be made of living crystal. Its voice, when it spoke, resonated through the quantum communicators with the weight of eons. "I am High Arbiter Vexthel of the Galactic Hegemony. We speak for the civilized galaxy. Your species has been observed. Your rapid expansion concerns us greatly." Alina straightened, drawing on every diplomatic protocol she'd ever learned. "I'm Captain Alina Rodriguez, representing the United Earth Alliance. We're honored by your visit and ready to discuss peaceful relations." The alien's expression, if it could be called that, remained unchanged. "Peace is not why we have come. Your species has achieved faster than light travel in mere decades. You have spread to 47 star systems. You build weapons of tremendous power. This pattern of behavior has been seen before. Behind Alina could see other aliens, each one clearly representing a different species. Their technology was beyond anything humanity had imagined. Their ships powered by forces that bent the laws of physics like children's toys. "Every young species believes it is special," Vexthel continued. "Everyone thinks it will be different. The galaxy has learned that rapid expansion leads to chaos, war, and destruction. We cannot allow this pattern to repeat." Alina felt her heart racing, but kept her voice steady. "What are you proposing?" "Submission. Your species will accept hegemony guidance. Your expansion will be controlled. Your weapons development will cease. Your technology will be regulated. In return, you will be allowed to exist under our protection." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of electronics. Alina looked around at her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. Humanity had spent centuries fighting for freedom, for the right to choose its own path among the stars. "And if we refuse?" Alina asked, though she dreaded the answer. Vexthel S-form seemed to pulse with energy. "Then we will implement the quantum suppression protocol. Your advanced technology will cease to function. Your computers, your faster-than-light drives, your quantum processors, all will be rendered inert. Your species will be forced to contemplate its choices for several of your centuries." Dr. Marcus Kane, humanity's leading quantum physicist, stepped forward from where he'd been observing. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. For you, perhaps, Vextal replied. For us, it is merely a tool of governance. The protocol has been used 17 times in the past millennium. Each species eventually chose submission over extinction. Elena's mind raced. Humanity had built its expansion on quantum technology. Their ships, their communications, their manufacturing, everything depended on quantum processors and field manipulators. Without them, human civilization would collapse back to pre-space travel levels. You have 72 of your hours to decide, Vextal announced. Choose wisely. This offer will not be repeated. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Alina stared at the alien fleet hanging in space like vultures waiting for death. Around her, she could hear the quiet sounds of her crew trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Captain, Lieutenant Chen said quietly, "What do we do?" Alina looked out at the stars, at the vast expanse that humanity had only just begun to explore. In 72 hours, it could all be over. Everything they'd built, everything they'd achieved, reduced to scrap metal floating in space. But as she stood there, Alina began to smile. It was a small smile, but it was real. The aliens had made an assumption. They thought they understood humanity. They thought humans would react like every other species. They'd conquered. They were about to learn that humans were different. Chen, get me every ship, every station, every colony in human space, Alina ordered. Emergency priority. Yes, Captain. What should I tell them? Elena's smile grew wider. Tell them we have a problem to solve. Tell them we have 72 hours to do it. And tell them that no one, absolutely no one, gets to decide humanity's fate except humanity itself. As the communications went out, Alina turned to Dr. Kane. Marcus, I need you to tell me everything you know about quantum suppression fields. Every theory, every possibility, every weakness. Kane nodded grimly. Alina, if they can do what they claim, we're looking at technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Maybe, Alina replied, looking back at the alien fleet. But they're making the same mistake every bully makes. They think that having better technology makes them smarter. They think having more power makes them wiser. She paused, watching as human ships began arriving from across the system, responding to her call. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, exploration ships, even the oldest vessels still running on primitive chemical rockets. Not much of a fleet by alien standards, but they were human ships, crewed by humans who would never back down from a fight. They're about to learn that humans don't just build better technology, Alina continued. We build better solutions. And the solution to this problem isn't going to come from our quantum computers or our fusion reactors. Kane looked puzzled. Then where will it come from? Alina turned from the window, her eyes bright with determination. From what we were before we had quantum computers. From what we were when we first looked up at the stars and decided we belonged there. The countdown had begun. 72 hours to find a solution to technology so advanced it might as well be magic. Most species would spend that time in panic, in desperate attempts to negotiate, in futile preparations for the inevitable. But Alina Rodriguez was beginning to understand something that aliens didn't. Humanity's greatest strength had never been its technology. It had always been its refusal to accept that anything was impossible. The quantum suppression field activated, exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum. High Arbiter Vextal watched. From the command throne of his flagship, as the massive field generators came online. Energy patterns older than most civilizations spread outward from the hegemony, vessels like ripples in the fabric of space itself. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the human colonies, quantum processors simply stopped working. Faster-than-light communications went silent. Fusion reactors shut down as their quantum containment fields collapsed. Ships drifted powerless as their drives failed. The carefully orchestrated symphony of human technology became a dirge of failure and silence. Protocol activation successful, reported Science Coordinator Zik Zeinal. All quantum-based technology within the target area has been neutralized. Energy signatures are dropping to pre-space flight levels. Vextel observed the readings with satisfaction. The humans had chosen defiance, as expected. Now they would learn the cost of opposing the hegemony. Within days, their leaders would be begging for mercy. Within months, they would accept any terms offered. It always happened the same way. But High Arbiter Vextel had never encountered humans before, on Earth. President Maria Santos stood in the Emergency Command Center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility had been built during the old nuclear wars, designed to function without any quantum technology. Now it was humanity's last connection to its scattered colonies. Report, she ordered General Patricia Hayes, the head of Earth's military. Forces, all major systems are down, Hayes replied, reading from paper documents by lamplight. Quantum networks are completely dead. Fusion plants have shut down. Transportation grids have collapsed, but casualties are minimal. Santos raised an eyebrow. In the collapse of an entire technological civilization, minimal casualties seemed impossible. The colonies were ready, Madam President, Hayes continued. Captain Rodriguez got her message out to every human settlement. Before the field activated, emergency protocols were in place. 3 days earlier, Alina Rodriguez had sent a single message to every human colony, ship, and outpost in known space. It had been simple, but it had changed everything. If the lights go out, remember who we were before we had lights, on Mars. Colony Director James Park stood in the hydroponics bay, watching his people work by the light of chemical torches. The advanced growing systems had failed, but the colonists were already implementing backup plans that used techniques older than spaceflight itself. "How long can we sustain this?" asked his deputy, Dr. Lisa Wang. Park smiled, gesturing to the rows of plants growing in simple soil under mirrors that reflected sunlight. "Forever, if we do it right." The aliens stopped our machines, but they didn't stop our knowledge. He was correct. The quantum suppression field could break computers, but it couldn't erase human memory. Every engineer still understood mechanics. Every farmer still knew how to grow food. Every craftsman still had their hands and their experience. The aliens had made a critical error. They had assumed that stopping advanced technology would stop human progress. They didn't understand that humans had reached the stars the first time with technology far simpler than what they were now being forced to use. On Europa Station, engineer Yuki Tanaka stared at the dead quantum processor that had controlled their ice mining operation. She smiled and walked to the storage bay, emerging with an old mechanical drill that had been kept as historical equipment. "If it worked for our ancestors," she told her team, "it'll work for us." Across the human colonies, something remarkable was happening. Instead of despair, there was energy. Instead of panic, there was purpose. In workshops and garages throughout human space, people were building things, not trying to recreate the lost quantum technology, but creating new versions of old solutions. Dr. Marcus Kane had been working on quantum field theory before the suppression activated. Now he stood in a workshop that looked like it belonged in the 19th century, using mechanical tools to work with materials that were still based on advanced science. The field only affects quantum processes, he explained to his research team. It can't touch mechanical systems, chemical reactions, or basic electromagnetic effects. We can still make everything we need. We just have to do it the old way. The old way, it turned out, was remarkably effective when guided by centuries of accumulated knowledge. In underground facilities around Earth, teams of engineers were building computers. Not quantum computers, but mechanical ones, using brass gears and steel wheels, but designed with mathematical precision that hadn't existed when such machines were first invented in the asteroid belt. Mining operations continued using chemical, explosives and mechanical tools, but with perfect understanding of orbital mechanics and materials science. On Luna, construction crews were building something that would have amazed their great-grandparents. It was a mass driver, a railgun 5 kilometers long that used electromagnetic forces to launch projectiles. But instead of quantum processors to control it, it used mechanical computers and human operators. The hegemony's sensors couldn't detect it because they were looking for quantum signatures. The mass driver was as invisible to them as a wooden sailing ship would be to radar. What the aliens observed from their ships seemed exactly as expected. Energy usage dropping, electronic communications ending, what appeared to be a return to pre-technological civilization. They increased their monitoring interval to once per year, confident that the humans would follow the same pattern as every other suppressed species. This was their greatest mistake. What the hegemony couldn't see from space was the sophistication of what humans were building. Their sensors detected steam power, but couldn't analyze the precision of the mechanical systems being constructed in underground factories. They saw chemical reactions, but didn't understand that humans were creating materials with properties that rivaled alien technology. 6 months after the suppression began, humanity was not dying. It was evolving. The analog revolution. Dr. Marcus Kane stood before the most complex machine ever built by human hands. It filled an entire cavern beneath the Swiss Alps, a computer made of brass, steel, and human ingenuity. Steam pipes provided power, mechanical arms moved with ballet-like precision, and gear trains computed orbital mechanics with accuracy that would have impressed the aliens who thought they had crippled humanity. "Status report," Kane called out, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "All systems operational," replied his assistant, Maria Santos, as she adjusted a massive control wheel. "Navigation calculations for the outer colonies are processing. Results in 4 hours. 4 hours. Before the quantum suppression, the same calculation would have taken microseconds on a quantum computer. But this machine would continue working, regardless of what the aliens did, and for hours was still fast enough to coordinate a revolution." Kane smiled as he watched the mechanical brain think. The hegemony had stolen humanity's quantum technology, but they had forgotten something crucial. Humans had reached the stars before quantum computers existed, and now they were doing it again, but with 2 centuries of additional knowledge guiding every gear and lever across the solar system. Project Renaissance was taking shape. It wasn't one program anymore, but thousands of separate efforts all working toward the same goal. In abandoned subway tunnels, teams built weapons using chemical explosives and clockwork timing mechanisms. In old mining shafts, Workers forged materials that could stop energy weapons but weighed no more than ancient steel. Captain Alina Rodriguez had been promoted to admiral. After the suppression began, she now commanded from a base that looked like it belonged in World War II, with paper maps and telephone lines. But the strategy she was developing was more sophisticated than anything in human military history. The key, she explained to her staff, is that they think they know us. Every species they've conquered followed the same pattern. Panic, then acceptance, then slow regression. They expect us to fit their model. She pointed to a mechanical plotting board where colored pins tracked ship movements throughout the system. Red pins marked alien positions. Blue pins showed human assets. The blue pins were multiplying every day. But we're not following their script, Alina continued. We're adapting faster than they can monitor. We're fighting smarter than they can predict. And most importantly, we're building something they've never seen before. The evidence was everywhere. On Mars, the colonists had constructed manufacturing facilities that produced more goods than before the suppression, using nothing but steam power and mechanical precision. On Europa, shipyards turned out vessels that looked primitive but were guided by mathematical principles the aliens' own computers couldn't match. The ships were strange creations that burned chemical fuel and used mechanical computers for navigation. Their weapons were railguns and kinetic projectiles. 2 alien sensors monitoring from high orbit, they appeared harmless and primitive. That was exactly what the humans intended. Admiral, message from Dr. Kane's facility, reported communications specialist Janet Liu, handing Alina a paper transcript that had traveled through a network of radio operators spanning the solar system. Alina read the message and felt a surge of excitement. Kane had cracked the quantum suppression field's fundamental frequency. More importantly, he had found its weakness. The field was incredibly sophisticated, but it had been designed by species that had never faced analog resistance, like generals preparing for every modern battle while forgetting that someone might attack with arrows and spears. The hegemony had created a perfect defense against quantum technology while leaving themselves vulnerable to mechanical solutions. How many kinetic projectiles do we have ready? Alina asked. 60,000, Liu replied. Each one designed to hit orbital targets with precision. Alina nodded. The projectiles were simple chunks of processed metal, but they didn't need to be complex. When something traveling at orbital velocity hits a target, physics handles the rest, but kinetic weapons were only part of the plan. The real genius of Project Renaissance wasn't in what humanity built, but in how they thought. Human engineers had spent months studying every piece of alien technology they could observe, identifying patterns and vulnerabilities that the hegemony didn't realize they possessed. The breakthrough had come when Kane discovered something remarkable about the alien quantum systems. They were too perfect. Their technology was so advanced that it had eliminated all redundancy. When their quantum processors worked, they worked flawlessly. But if something disrupted them, everything failed at once. It's like building a race car with no spare tire, Kane had explained. Amazing performance, but one unexpected problem brings everything to a halt. This was the foundation of humanity's counterattack. The aliens were like athletes who had trained for every sport except the one humanity was about to play. In the shipyards of Europa, Alina stood before her fleet. 43 vessels floated in the frozen harbor, each one a masterpiece of retro-engineering. They looked like something from humanity's past, but they carried weapons designed with knowledge from humanity's future. Fleet status, she requested from Captain James Morrison, her new task force commander. All ships ready for operation, Morrison replied. Fuel reserves at maximum. Kinetic weapons loaded and calibrated. Mechanical guidance systems tested and operational. We can launch on your command. Alina studied her fleet. Each ship was powered by fusion engines that used magnetic containment instead of quantum field manipulation. Their computers were mechanical. Marvels that could calculate interplanetary trajectories using gear trains and slide rules. Their weapons were electromagnetic launchers that worked on principles older than spaceflight itself. The hegemony thought they had neutralized humanity by removing their advanced technology. Instead, they had forced humans to become something far more dangerous, a species that could fight a modern war with classical tools. Captain Morrison, Alina said, signal Earth Command. Tell them the fleet is ready. Yes, Admiral. What should the message say? Alina looked up at the stars where alien ships waited in comfortable ignorance of what humanity had built in the darkness below. Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what happens when someone underestimates human determination. The message traveled through the solar system using relay stations and mechanical telegraph systems. It reached every human colony, every hidden facility, every workshop where people had spent 18 months building the impossible. The response was immediate and coordinated. From Earth came confirmation that the mass drivers were loaded and targeted. From Mars came word that the manufacturing plants could supply whatever was needed. From the asteroid belt came reports of mining facilities that had been secretly converting into kinetic bombardment platforms. But perhaps the most important message came from Dr. Kane's facility in the Alps. His mechanical computers had finished their greatest calculation, the exact frequency needed to turn the aliens' own quantum suppression field against them. The attack began at 0800 GMT on a Tuesday morning that would be remembered as the day humanity refused to stay in its cage. High Arbiter Vextal was reviewing routine reports when the first kinetic projectile struck his flagship. The impact was devastating, not because of the projectile's sophistication, but because of its simplicity. It was just metal moving very fast, and the hegemony's quantum shields had no protocols for defending against something so primitive. What was that? Vextal demanded as his bridge shook under secondary impacts. Unknown, High Arbiter, Science. Coordinator Zixonal replied, frantically consulting instruments that showed impossible readings. Our sensors detect no energy weapons, no quantum signatures, but we're taking damage from multiple impacts. More projectiles struck the hegemony fleet, each one launched by mass drivers that operated on principles the aliens had forgotten existed. The impacts weren't just destructive, they were confusing. How could a species with no functional technology launch such precise attacks? Then Dr. Kane's masterstroke activated. Using a mechanical transmitter the size of a city block, hidden beneath the lunar surface, humanity broadcast a signal that turned the quantum suppression field inside out. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the hegemony, their own. Technology, designed to suppress quantum processes, suddenly began suppressing their quantum processes. Ships went dark as their processors failed. Weapons systems crashed as their targeting computers died. Life support flickered as environmental controls reverted to backup modes that barely functioned. High Arbiter, Zixonel reported in panic. Our quantum systems are failing. The suppression field is somehow affecting us instead of the humans. Vextal stared at his displays in disbelief. Across the hegemony fleet, ships were going dark one by one. But on the human side, mechanical systems continued working perfectly. Steam-powered vessels moved with precision. Mechanical computers calculated firing solutions, and kinetic weapons struck with increasing accuracy. "How is this possible?" Vextor whispered. The answer came from Captain Alina Rodriguez, whose voice suddenly filled the Hegemony command ship's communication system. She was using a simple radio transmitter that bypassed all their quantum defenses. "Hi, Arbiter Vextel." Elena's voice was calm and confident. "This is Admiral Elena Rodriguez of the Human Free Fleet. I believe you wanted to discuss our surrender." Vextel's crystalline form flickered with confusion and rage. "Your technology was suppressed. You should be helpless." "You suppressed our advanced technology," Alina replied. "But you forgot something important. We didn't start with advanced technology. We built it, and we can build it again, differently, better, and in ways you never imagined." As she spoke, more human ships emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system, vessels that looked like they belonged in a museum, but moved with deadly precision. They surrounded the Hegemony fleet like wolves, circling wounded prey. "You made the same mistake every bully makes," Alina continued. "You assumed that having better technology made you smarter. You thought that suppressing our computers would suppress our thinking. You believed that taking away our quantum processors would take away our ability to solve problems." Another wave of kinetic projectiles struck the alien fleet, each impact carefully calculated by mechanical computers and aimed by human hands. "But humans don't solve problems with technology," Alina said. "We solve problems with creativity. We solve them with determination. We solve them by refusing to accept that anything is impossible." Vextel watched his mighty fleet being disabled by weapons that shouldn't exist, guided by computers that shouldn't work, operated by a species that should have been crushed 18 months ago. "What do you want?" he finally asked. Elena's response was immediate. "We want you to leave. We want you to tell the galaxy that humanity is not available for conquest. And we want you to understand that the next time someone threatens human freedom, we won't be as gentle as we were today." The Hegemony fleet began its retreat, limping away on backup systems while human vessels escorted them to the edge of the solar system. As they departed, Alina broadcast a final message that would be heard throughout the galaxy. "To all species, within range of this transmission," she said, "humanity extends an invitation to join us in exploring the universe as equals. We offer partnership, not domination. We seek cooperation, not conquest. But to any who would enslave us or suppress us, know this: we are the species that reached the stars with chemical rockets and mechanical computers. We are the species that builds solutions, not excuses. We are humanity, and we do not wait for permission to be free." The quantum suppression field deactivated as the Hegemony ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing a species they had never understood. Across human space, quantum computers came back online, but they were joined now by mechanical systems that would never again be vulnerable to suppression. Admiral Alina Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of Terra Prime, watching the last alien ship disappear into the distance. Around her, the lights of human civilization burned brighter than ever. Powered by both quantum fusion and steam engines, guided by both digital computers and mechanical calculators, they had tried to put humanity in a cage, but they had only taught humans to build better lockpicks. The galaxy would never be the same.